Hello and welcome back to the Q&A. This time I believe it is the 9th that we've done so far, and this is pretty cool actually. This series has just exceeded all of my expectations. It's kind of awesome and humbling that people are interested in the things I have to say about these questions. So today's question is probably quite the big one, I guess. It is from two different people, and it's do you think WoW is dying, and is WoW eventually going to die? And first of all, I'm going to say no, not in the way people think it will die. When people say WoW is going to die, they pretty much mean server shutdowns, etc. That is not happening, at least not for, I'd say, at least 10, 15 years. Look at EverQuest 1. That is still going after over 15 years? I think it came out in 98, 97, something like that. Maybe it was 99, whatever. You get what I mean. WoW isn't going anywhere anytime soon. There are way more than 2 expansions left. I think a lot of people seem to think that it would hit this mystical 100 levels, ooh, level 100, and that's really just a number. Blizzard are going to keep on going while it's profitable, and at the end of the day, even if this were to drop to 5 million subscribers, it would still be the largest subscriber MMO. Hell, it would probably still be the largest if it dropped to 4 million or 3 million, because everything else is doing free-to-play. People don't really understand just how insanely massive World of Warcraft still is. The only other games that have more players is maybe like MapleStory because it's ridiculous, or like, I don't know, LOL? Perhaps Dota? And they're free. So I definitely think WoW's not going anywhere, and here are the sort of in-game reasons and just general psychology reasons why I don't think it's going anywhere. So first of all, people are ingrained and invested in the game, literally, with money. Money talks. And if you think you've been spending, let's just bring up my calculator here. This is some live maths. If you have been playing the game for, let's just say 5 years, now 10 years is 120 months, so divided by 2 is 60, there you go, 60 months times 15 is $900. That's a lot of money. And people are invested via money, and that does have a psychological effect in their brain, which means they are more likely to stay with World of Warcraft. Maybe you'll bounce off and, but have a little bit of infidelity with another MMO, but you're always going to come back because you've put in all that money at the end of the day, and I think that's really something that's powerful, and honestly that's not the best reason to keep people in your game. Obviously you need to keep people in your game by your game being great, and I think that, well, I'll come on to that later. Now, people are also invested in the game via time. It's very hard to leave behind something that you have spent a ridiculous amount of time in. I'm pretty sure my in-game time is over, I think it's over 4,500 hours. It could be more. You know what? Actually, I'm just going to, I'll find out in game, then add it in like with an annotation or something in post, just to let you know. But people have been playing World of Warcraft for a lot of time. Now that means, are you just going to leave that behind? I mean, those hours of time were fun, but they're all put into a character. Do you just want to leave that character? That is one of the things that about MMOs in general, but WoW especially because it's about 10 years old now, is that people are so ingrained and invested both in time and money that psychologically it's very hard to get out of the game. And that shows a lot of people that play World of Warcraft are getting on in age. Now, if we look at my channel, my largest demographic, I believe, is 18 to 24, which actually I'm in terms of subscribers, but in terms of actual viewers, the largest demographic is over 30. Which, it's still, that's crazy in my head that people over 30 are watching this, which is awesome, by the way. I know being in Northern Ireland, I wish there was more over 30s that were into gaming here. God knows there aren't. So yeah, the game's got a pretty mature player base, and there are people who are in their World of Warcraft, they enjoy it, and they're going to keep on playing it, because they're invested via money and invested via time, and they're the two big things that really that play into it. Now let's talk about it from an actual game standpoint, because as the players, that's really the only thing we give a shit about. So, Blizzard are better than ever in my opinion, and I have a few different reasons why. First of all, we have balance. Now a lot of people QQ about balance these days, and the thing they don't understand is, well, perhaps if they were playing about 4 years ago, and if you sort of found out 4 years ago that the classes would be as balanced as they are now, with most being within, pretty much all of them being within 5% for the good specs, that's ridiculous. In what was the, yeah, in like BC and Wrath. Now it wasn't as bad in Wrath, but especially in BC, some classes and things you just couldn't really play. Like, it was just dumb to do it. In Vanilla, even more so. And in Wrath of the Lich King, there was still spec-to-spec variation of 30 to 50% in terms of damage numbers. Now, that means the game right now is very balanced, and that basically just means that people are more free to play whatever spec they want without the kind of stigma of oh, you're like suboptimal. Of course that's still there, and for an example, I did raid quite a while as survival when Beastmaster was a solid 6 to 10% higher in terms of damage, but I still was able to do pretty well. In past expansions, it wasn't like that, so this is just another one of those aspects where Blizzard is being better than ever. Another one is the pace of content. Now this is something we actually haven't seen we have not seen their final form yet. Currently, with the pace of content, we are getting pretty much every 2.5 months we're getting a patch. Now every 5 to 6 months, one of those is a major raid patch, with a big PvE zone like the Time of the Isle or the Isle of Thunder. They're big into their islands this time, and then in between those we get something like Battlefield Barons 5.1. I think Battlefield Barons was a little bit of a kind of dud in terms of content, but in terms of actual gameplay systems that were then ported into the Time of the Isle, I think it was definitely a necessary evil, I suppose. But with this going forward, even if they were to maintain this current pace of content, they're doing a good job of keeping the game fresh. Now, I do have some ideas, and another thing that's worth pointing out is they have expanded the team, and they're planning another 40% expansion to the point where they nearly want monthly content. And talking about monthly content, I did a Q&A a while ago about competitive raiding, and the idea I had, one of the ideas was a Colosseum, a little bit like the Crusaders Colosseum from Wrath, but the thing is that every month or every 2 weeks or whatever, there would be a new challenge boss that would appear there. It would be kind of like the Brawlers Guild, but for loads, like for guilds, and there could be leaderboards and stuff in servers. Now, of course, varying levels of difficulty, so that even a flex group could go in and try their hand at it, for the fun, but it would sort of have a more competitive thing. I think content like that that's updating on a constant basis to give people another reason to go back is a great thing. Now, past, like in previous times, stuff like that was done via things maybe unlocking in week 2, unlocking in week 3, like the Isle of Kel'Thuzad or the Isle of Thunder. I think they can continue doing that, and the Timeless Isle not having a system like that and just having everything unlocked at the start was definitely a mistake. I think the Timeless Isle is great, but it definitely lacks some structure to it. But in general though, the pace of content really is increasing. That is just going to be so good for player retention. They already said that patch 5.2 and 5.3 were extremely good for player retention, and just think about how much better 5.4 is with the flexible system being introduced. Now, as well as that, they have new ideas and mechanics, so this is really more of a thing of ideas, and when I say ideas, I mean the dynamic systems and things they have in place for the Timeless Isles, where you can have more interesting freeform content, dynamic events, things players can go and do, stuff like that. It can be used in the future, sprinkling through leveling zones, sprinkling basically through the whole game, having fun, discoverable things that will spice up the gameplay, keep people interested, and at the end of the day, if hour to hour you're more interested, day to day you'll be more interested, and month to month you'll keep on subscribing. So there's that. And the next thing is mechanics. Now, when I say mechanics, I'm more talking about bosses. Bosses are they're getting crazy fun. They're so interesting. Like, the most recent video I recorded was on the Shav of Pride and Norshan, and just why I love those bosses for the fun factor of them. And I just think that as mechanics keep on going, there'll be more interesting bosses, people will be more interested in raid content. Now, historically in Wrath and most of MoP, because there wasn't a Flex or ICC 10 sort of equivalent, a lot of people only saw these cool, interesting mechanics in LFR, which was really shit for them because the mechanics are not done justice. Now, with the flexible system, people can really experience the full depth of all the really interesting bosses, raids, and mechanics that Blizzard put out. That further gives people new, interesting content to do on a weekly basis, which is fantastic. And then new systems. Now, when I say new systems, that's like the Flex system as an example. Adding in a new difficulty level, which applies to pretty much everyone, like literally everyone. That is amazing, and if you think of just how popular ICC 10 was back in the day, the reason I say ICC 10 is because it really was the pinnacle of that. Icecrown Citadel was really the pinnacle of a raid which had something for everyone. There was 10, which was definitely harder than Flex, but it was still doable in a pug. And that was really kind of fantastic, because it just meant there was something for everyone, and now that we have that in the current game, with the current pace of content and the current kind of level and quality of bosses, I just think that's great as a system. Also, we have things like scenarios, which hopefully will be expanded upon. A system I'd suggest adding was the one for extra heroic dungeons, like you would have level 90 heroics that were hard mode heroics that were ultra hard, not ultra hard, but quite hard, a bit like the Cataclysm ones. I did a full video on this, so you're probably best just to go back. I think it's the one I featured in the channel, I'm not sure. But hey, if you've watched, if you're watching my Q&A, you've probably seen that already. New systems like that are something they're going to keep on adding into the game. That will just, it'll keep it interesting, it'll keep new stuff being there, and that'll keep the game fresh. So there's that. And another thing is that they are doing a very, very good job of catering to a lot more people with content while not taking away high-end stuff. And a lot of people were saying that, oh, flexible or whatever, this is pandering to the casuals, blah blah blah, they're trying to kill heroic raiding. No, they are still supporting fully heroic raiding, they're supporting normal raiding fully, even if LFR kind of dies in comparison to flex, there's a good chance they'll keep that supported as well. They have got content which now applies to everybody. That means everyone gets the full breadth of whatever the new stuff, like the new shit they put in. Everyone can experience it in a way that's fun to them. Lots of talking. Now next they said, now this is not something they said or I said, well it is something I'm about to say. Yeah, I'm delirious. But anyway, a lot of people say that they should go back to the Burning Crusade model, because that's really when the game gained the most subscribers. And, well, here's why I don't think that's going to work. So back in the Burning Crusade, MMOs were still new. World of Warcraft was still pretty new in the scheme of things, and it was still interesting and special in the scheme of things, and that was a time when things like alting and getting rep, doing quests, were new and shiny, and that was enough to keep people going. You still had things like raid achievements and things like that, which meant that the raiding population just kept on dwindling and dwindling, but by the time you got to the last tier, not very many people were even geared to do the damn thing. Now this meant that a lot of content was not going out to a lot of people, and while that's okay for the people who get to the content, it's not really good for the game as a whole. But it was okay in Burning Crusade because people could just go and do something like Netherwing, or farm some gold to get their epic flying, because those things were still new, shiny, and special. They're not anymore. And that's why the Burning Crusade model just wouldn't work. Right now, though, I just think that the current design philosophy is, bar a few kinks, really going in the right direction. Now let's talk about how it will decline, because there's still a very good chance that the game will decline, although I don't think it will die for everything I said above. Well, before, not above, because, this isn't text, this is a video, yeah. Now, over time, via attrition, that's the first way it's going to go, and that is just completely natural for all games. People who play the game get older, they move on, they have other things to do in their life, they don't have time for World of Warcraft anymore. Even though they've spent all that time and money on it, sometimes it just doesn't work out, and that's fine. That's attrition. And in an older game, you're not going to be getting in as many new people, so attrition is going to be the main source, it's the main source of losses, and they probably won't be replenished, so it'll just be a slow decline if that does happen. And this is totally natural for games to do. Totally natural. And the next thing is either if WoW Successor comes out, or whether Titan comes out. WoW Successor, of course, most people will probably jump onto it, because it'll probably be great. And the next thing is Titan. Titan, when it comes out, I'd say a lot of people are just going to hop over to that instead of WoW. And that's fair enough, Blizzard will then have two crazy popular MMOs in their hands. I don't think Titan will ever reach the point of 12 million subscribers. That was in a time where Warcraft didn't exist. And speaking of times when Warcraft didn't exist, let's talk about the WoW killer. There's no WoW killer. There's no game that's going to come out. Guild Wars was the WoW killer. I remember even when Aeon was supposed to be the WoW killer. I feel old now. Rift was supposed to be the WoW killer. Warhammer Online was probably, to some people, supposed to be the WoW killer. The point is, they're all dead. Kind of. Apart from Rift, it seems to be doing quite well, but Aeon really suffered. SWTOR, I think everyone knows about, or Tor, even a lot of people know about that. And the reason that these things didn't die is because a lot of people were just invested in WoW, they jump into those other games, they come back. And the reason that Warcraft was able to get to its crazy height of 12 million subscribers is it came out when Warcraft didn't exist. There was no other MMO which offered that experience, and any new MMO that comes out has got to compete with 10 years of content and expertise from Blizzard, where they've been constantly refining their in-game systems and stuff like that. So no, there's not going to be a WoW killer. To that one person who says it's going to be WildStar, nope, it's not going to be WildStar. WildStar's going to be great, it's not going to be WildStar. To the one person who says it's Elder Scrolls Online, nope, you're wrong. Elder Scrolls Online will probably be fun, but guess what? It won't kill WoW, because the only thing that's going to kill WoW is time, WoW itself, WoW 2, or Titan. The only reason that WoW 2 and Titan are going to do it is because they're made by the same company, and Blizzard are great for brand loyalty. So that's really it for this video about why I don't think WoW will die in the traditional sense of OMG, it's dead. There you go. I think I'm right. I hope I'm right. I like being right, so yeah, that should be good. Anyway, that's it for this video. If you would like to add a question or ask me a question, which I very much suggest you would, because the more questions I get, the more of these videos I can do. Just leave a question in the comments. I would ask that you leave the word, just, like in quotes or whatever, question. That way I can use Control F in Google Chrome and I can easily find your question and stick it into my big Word document of questions, which would really help me out. But anyway, that's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing. And with that, I'll see you next time.